This morning we have two Hebrew readings. The first is from Genesis 1, verses 20 and 21. And God said, "Let the waters bring forth swarms of living creatures, and let birds fly above the earth across the dome of the sky." So God created the great sea monsters and every living creature that moves, of every kind, with which the waters swarm, and every winged bird of every kind. And God saw that it was good. The next reading is from Exodus, chapter 19, verses 2 through 6. They journeyed from Rephidim, entered the wilderness of Sinai, and camped in the wilderness. Israel camped there in front of the mountain. Then Moses went up to God. The Lord called to him from the mountain, "Thus you shall say to the house of Jacob and tell the Israelites, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians and how I bore you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. Now therefore, if you obey my voice and keep my covenant, you shall be my treasured possession out of all the peoples. Indeed, the whole earth is mine, but you shall be for me a priestly kingdom and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the Israelites." The first reading is from Matthew chapter 3, verses 16 and 17. And when Jesus had been baptized, just as he came up from the water, suddenly the heavens were opened to him, and he saw God's Spirit descending like a dove and alighting on him. And a voice from the heavens said, "This is my Son, the beloved, with whom I am well pleased." The next reading is from Matthew chapter 17, verse 20. He said to them, "Because of your little faith, for truly I tell you, if you have faith the size of a mustard seed, you will say to this mountain, 'Move from here to there,' and it will move, and nothing will be impossible for you." The word of God for the people of God. Thanks be to God.
So my name's Bob Culbertson. I'll be talking today about the natural systems here around the Monterey Bay and how it relates to God and our Christian faith. So I opened the message with the Genesis chapter, and whether it's metaphorical or reality, we believe that God created all living things, that the spirit and the universe, that's where life comes from, and it's a gift from God to us. And we have abundant gifts in this Monterey Bay area that we'll be talking about this morning. The second chapter, second verse was about Moses. And most people know the story of how the Israelites were enslaved in Egypt and were led out of Egypt to the wilderness. And they went to Mount Sinai. And in this particular verse, God says, if the Israelites want to be my chosen people and be the faithful, most important people on the religious spectrum, they need to know that the earth is mine, and they need to keep the covenants that I've given you. So this was he talked to Moses, and Moses talked to the Israelites. And this was just before Moses went up on Mount Sinai and got our 10 Commandments. It's interesting that these things, the scripture shows us over and over again that important pronouncements and relationships happen in the wilderness. They happen out in the open. They're not in the biggest temple in the middle of a big city. They're not in a coliseum. They're out in the wilderness. They're out on top of a mountain. So over and over again in the Bible, the importance of being in natural systems and be opening to the call of God and God reaching out to people is shown through scripture. The New Testament ones, again, are examples of God saying that his spirit came out when Jesus was baptized like a dove. He uses doves and eagles, mustard seeds, grapevines, over and over again, they use natural systems to talk about the relationship of men and women to God and the kingdom of God. This morning I handed out, you hand out a little cone, a little female cone from a California redwood tree. Now the Bible talked about a mustard seed, and the mustard seed grows into a large plant and has room for birds to nest and food. But I think if Jesus was here in the Monterey Bay area 2,000 years ago, he would have used a redwood cone. That little redwood cone that handed out has little redwood seeds in it. And from the redwood seed comes the tallest trees in the world. Some of the redwood trees here in this county are 1,500 to 2,000 years old. Some of those redwood trees were on the planet at the same time that Jesus was here. And the ability to have a little tiny seed create something that lives 2,000 years and grows to be the tallest thing is the talk about, this is what we talk about faith. If you had faith the size of a redwood seed, you could say to a mountain, move, and the mountain would move. So that's my belief. I think he could have used the redwood seed if he'd been on this side of the world. So this morning I'll be talking about all of God's gifts in the Monterey Bay area, and we'll be showing you some slides. So I think he's going to start. Gave a lot of slides. So we have vultures. That's a turkey vulture, but we have California condors down in Big Sur. Have a 9-foot wingspan. There's 150 California condors that are on the Big Sur coast, and they travel over the Pinnacles back and forth. They were around when Jesus was here. They were around before Jesus was here. These are old, they're endangered birds, and if you go down to Andrew Malera Park, there's an opportunity to learn about them and find out about them. So whether you like the size kind of thing or a hummingbird. Now, a hummingbird wingspan is not 9 feet. The hummingbird wingspan is 2 to 3 inches. But people love to watch the hummingbirds. They're iridescent feathers. So we have hummingbirds that frequent the UC Santa Cruz Arboretum. If you want to see some hummingbirds, Alan and Anna hummingbirds, it's a great place to go. The hummingbird male wants to, impress the female. To do that, he goes up about 30 feet in the air and does a suicide dive for the ground. And just at the last minute, he pulls out. And the female goes, whoa, So, they're a lot of fun to watch. They eat nectar. So some of the birds eat nectar. The condor, of course, and the turkey vultures eat meat. We have a lot of meat-eating birds and seed-eating birds. Wild turkeys, this is a picture from our farm, but turkeys eat seeds, finches eat seeds, sparrows eat seeds, a lot of seed-eating birds in our area. And it's wonderful to know that you can have meat-eating birds, fish-eating birds, the eagle and the osprey. We have eagles here. I took a group of 30 fourth graders from Valencia Elementary School on one of our nice hikes out by Watsonville Slough. It's a nice paved area. You can go on a wheelchair, have a little help wheeling down the hill, but you can watch the shorebirds. And we were looking at pelicans, and we were looking at egrets, and we were looking at coots and ducks. And a fourth grader says, is that an eagle? And I looked up, and there was a pair of eagles soaring overhead. So our national bird has a nest right here in Watsonville, and we have osprey. Eagles and ospreys love to eat fish. So the big raptors, we have red-tailed hawks, all kinds of hawks. So more meat eaters, owls. The lady at Suki at our YMCA was saying, I keep hearing this hoo, 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 hoo. I said, well, that's a great horned owl. She said, I can't see him. It's real frustrating. I said, well, they're going to be in the foliage of the tree. They're kind of a brown color, and they blend in. So next week she came back. I saw them, and they're having babies. And then she sent me some pictures of the owlets and the mom, and she's so happy that she has owls on her property. She lives off on Carlton Road, and she hates gophers, another one of God's creatures. But they mess with her garden. The owls love to eat gophers. So another meat-eating bird. So meat-eating birds, seed-eating birds, nectar-eating birds, insect-eating birds. I personally do not like mosquitoes, but we have sparrows that eat seeds, and we have the swallows eat insects. Now, swallows, if you're a birder and you're just beginning, and you have a pair of binoculars and you want to watch swallows, give it up. Because the swallows go back and forth. They can catch insects on the fly. They're really fast. More swallows, less mosquitoes. I love swallows, okay? But if you're new and you want to watch birds, it's best like when you go to the Watsonville Slough on the trail, you can watch a great blue heron or an egret. They're fish-eating birds, and the way they hunt, they don't dart around all over like the swallows or attack from the sky like a falcon or some of the hawks. They stand absolutely still. So here you've got a 4-foot-high bird standing absolutely still. So you shouldn't have any problem with binoculars or a spotting scope getting it all focused in, and you can see the detail on the bird. So when we have these kind of birds in our slough area, they're a lot of fun to watch. And we have not only the wetlands, we have 800 acres of area wetlands, that's a great blue heron there. But this fish-eating birds and the birds in the wetlands are easy to watch, a lot of fun. We also have lots of miles of beaches, so there's all kinds of shorebirds. We have so many birds in Watsonville. For 14 years, I worked with the Monterey Bay Birding Festival. People came from Canada, from England, from all over the United States to go where? To Watsonville, to come to the Monterey Bay. In one weekend, 225 different species of birds. Now, I didn't try and put up all the 225 species of birds, and we have a limited amount of time this morning. So, but if you're interested, there's going to be, now they've got it, after COVID, they stopped the Monterey Bay Birding Festival. Now they're calling it the, let's see, it's going to happen in October, and I think it's the 11th and 12th of October, but it's a festival of birds. It's a different organization, but it's the same thing. You sign up, you go out with a birding expert, and you can decide whether you want to go see condors or whether you want to see things like the snowy plover. Snowy plover lives at Sunset Beach. It's an endangered species. It doesn't build a big, huge nest. It hollows out a little bit of sand and lays its eggs in the sand and hatches its eggs. There's a natural preserve at the mouth of the Pajaro River for these little tiny snowy plovers. They're an endangered species also. So lots of different kinds of birds. In addition to the birds, we have two kinds of pelicans, white pelicans that nest down in Mexico. They fly right over the border wall, and they come up here to Watsonville, and they feed up here. And the white pelicans work as a community. They get into the water, they use their feet to stir up the fish, and they herd the fish over to the shallows, and then they just dip their bills down and eat them. Now, that's the white pelican there on the photo. But people are more frequently seeing with the brown pelican. It's actually kind of gray, but they fly in little ribbons off the coast, and they'll go from 30 feet up and dive into the water and come up with some fish. And so we have both these kinds of pelicans here. The white pelicans are here seasonally because they spend part of their year in Mexico and part of their year here in Watsonville. So lots of different shorebirds, lots of different water birds, field birds, meadowlarks, owls, 4 different kinds of owls in our area, lots of different kinds of seed-eating birds, finches and sparrows and turkeys. So all these different kinds of birds are around us. They live in different habitats, and because we have so many habitats, we have more birds. So woodpeckers that are up in the forest, I saw a red-headed woodpecker on my way into church today. They like to eat insects, and they put little acorns in the tree, and then they eat the grubs that come to feed on those. We have blue jays and other quail, California quail, things that like to be in the woods or in the meadows. So we have redwood forests. We talked about the redwood tree. We have Monterey pine forest. There's a native Monterey pine forest up at Rancho del Oso, up by Waddell Creek, just before you go out of Santa Cruz County. And we planted a whole bunch of native Monterey pines at New Brighton State Beach, where I lived for a while when I was the ranger. So lots of Monterey pine. We have the most common tree is the Quercus agrifolia, the coastal live oak. So the oak tree has acorns, doesn't have little seeds and nuts and cones. It has acorns. The Native Americans lived off of oak acorns. They knew how to grind it down into meal and feed on it. That's my wife, the tree hugger. So that's why she's so compatible for me. She loves trees. We have, at our property, we have beekeepers that come and put bees out because it's organic, and the bees love the flowers in the meadow and the forest. So lots of different kinds of insects. We have dragonflies, ants, all kinds of insects. Again, the insect-eating birds love it here as well. So lots of different food, lots of different habitat, lots of different birds, lots of different trees. Eucalyptus trees come, and of course, we in Pajaro planted a whole bunch of apple trees. In the Bible, it talks about an apple tree right at the beginning. So, apple trees have been around since Jesus was around, and there's plenty of apple trees to look at around here too, and they provide lots of food for people and for animals. The deer, for example, in our front yard, love to get up on their hind legs and eat the apple leaves. They prune back the trees for me. They're like big goats. So deer, possum, raccoons, lots and lots of different mammals, land mammals, including big cats. We have a trail camera that Joan puts out, and we have a picture of a mountain lion. Now, the California mountain lion is about 6 feet long, not counting its tail, and it's a meat eater. So we see skeletons of deer once in a while. They usually roam about 200 miles through the woods, but we do have mountain lion here. We have bobcats. The bobcats we have are a little bigger than house cats, and they like to eat gophers. Thank you. So helps a lot. For some reason, the gophers are able to feed owls and bobcats, and everybody else. Are very prolific. But the land mammals we have are, again, something you can see on field trips, and we have different kinds of frogs and salamanders and newts and all kinds of creatures, so many different creatures in our neighborhoods. So I put a little list together of the various visitor centers and places you can go if you want to learn more about any of these things. That's a bobcat in our yard with a little gopher in his mouth. So start down in Andrew Malera, where you can go down and see the condors. You come up a little bit and you come to Point Lobos. I worked at Point Lobos for a while, and you can see the migrating whales there. You can see the cormorants. Cormorants are really interesting birds. You'll see them off in our Watsonville Slough also. Again, they're easy to put your binoculars on because typically they're hanging with their wings out like this. And you say, well, why would a cormorant do that? Well, a cormorant, big black bird with a long neck, is a diving bird. They can dive 150 feet into the water to get fish. They like to eat fish. They get all wet. When they're in the water, they look like a little submarine. Their backs are underwater. They're not like a duck floating on top of the water. All you see is the periscope. You just see the head and the neck. They're made so that they can dive easily into the water. If anybody's ever tried to do scuba diving, you know you need a weight belt because it's hard to get down. There's a cormorant. So these cormorants, after they've been fishing and they're all soaking wet, they'll get up on a limb and they'll just hang their wings out and sit there to dry. Again, very easy to put your scope on. Cormorants, you can see them. And then if you're coming north out of Point Lobos, how many here have been to the Monterey Bay Aquarium? Okay, there's only a couple of hands I don't see. So I would encourage you to see that. It's a wonderful thing. You can see what scuba divers see, and it has all kinds of information about marine life in the Monterey Bay. It's a place, again, people come from all over the country to go to our Monterey Bay Aquarium. Coming further north, you go to Moss Landing. They have whale watching tours. If you want to see the migrating whales, we have a California gray whale. Now, California gray whale is an interesting phenomenon. Hilda, I was talking to her because she's pregnant and thinking about giving birth. I said, just think about the mama gray whale. Mama gray whale swims down to Mexico, nice warm water, Scammons Lagoon, and gives birth. If she was going to send out a little announcement, she'd say, Junior was born. He's 15 feet long, and he's really cute. So they nurse their babies and their milk. They're mammals. They nurse them with milk, and their milk is like yogurt. They have to gain a few hundred pounds. If you want to be a good-looking mama gray whale, you have to have at least 1 foot of fat all over your body. That's a really good-looking female, foot of fat. So they nurse the babies down in Scammon Lagoons, and then they migrate. They swim all the way up through our bay, all the way up to Alaska. So they feed up in Alaska. And why Alaska? Because In the summertime, when you get 24 hours of sunlight, you get all kinds of plankton, krill, and they're baleen feeders. They have this internal mustache. They don't have teeth. They have like a big mustache. They take a big gulp of food and water. They use their tongue to move the water out, chopping all the food in their mustache, and then swallow it. That's the way they feed, baleen whales. So they fatten up in Alaska. They take the baby up there, fatten them up, and then they come back down. So long-distance swimmers, for those of you who like cross-country or long-distance routes, think about swimming from Mexico to Alaska. That's a pretty long distance. So we also have the gray whales and the blue whales. Blue whales come from Hawaii. They come over to the Monterey Bay. Monterey Bay has this 45-degree canyon that has upwelling, lots of plants and nutrition, lots of sardines and things. We have whales that go from Hawaii to Monterey. I know a lot of people like to go from Monterey to Hawaii. That's okay. But these whales actually come to visit us because of the Monterey Bay. So if you want to see whales up close, whether it's gray whales or fin whales or blue whales, they have whaling tours out of Moss Landing, and they also have tours up the Elkhorn Slough out of Moss Landing. People like to see the little sea otters, cute little marine mammals. Again, the best way to hear about them is to go to the aquarium, but they're out there in the Monterey Bay. They're out there at Moss Landing. They're up in the Elkhorn Slough. Elkhorn Slough itself has a visitor center, can tell you all about wildlife in Monterey County. And coming a little further north, we go to the Sea Cliff. We're going to have a Holy Guacamole trip to Sea Cliff here where we have a picnic. They have a little visitor center there. It tells you about wildlife and nature. Go a little bit further north, there's City of Santa Cruz has a nature center, tells you about wildlife. Natural Bridges, the Monarch, Welcome Back Monarch Day is coming in November this year, or in October 12th. And the monarch butterflies cluster, and monarch stories are a lot of fun because they go from leaf-eating caterpillars, little fat things that munch on leaves, to these flying insects that eat nectar. So it's this whole transformation, this idea that you can change yourself. People, they use butterflies a lot for analogies of how you can change and the beauty inside of you and so forth. So it's a natural story that we use. And Welcome Back Monarch Days, you can see hundreds of butterflies, and they like to hang out on an immigrant tree. So the eucalyptus tree is what they prefer up at Natural Bridges. Eucalyptus trees came originally from Australia, and we have groves of eucalyptus, and up at Natural Bridges they provide the habitat for the overwintering monarchs. A little beyond the Natural Bridges is a Seymour Discovery Center. They have a marine lab there. Again, they have a skeleton with a fin whale. You can actually walk inside the rib cage of a whale if you want, going to the Seymour Center. And a little further north than that, we've been to it before, but it's a Rancho del Oso, where they have the last taxidermied grizzly bear. Last grizzly bear, California grizzly bear, it's on our flag. California flag has a grizzly. Was killed in 1912, shot. So we don't have any more California grizzlies, but there's a taxidermied one you can actually see and touch at Rancho del Oso. And just beyond that is in San Mateo County is Año Nuevo, where they have a reserve for elephant seals up close and personal. So lots and lots of opportunities to learn more about nature in the area. But the Henry Cowell I skipped over the Henry Cowell Visitor Center, where we have a Redwood Trail, handicap accessible, wheelchair accessible, a nice museum there, lots of information about things going on at Cowell. So all these things are places you can learn more about the systems. Again, people come from all over the country to be where you're at because of all the wonders, the natural wonders that are around us that God gave us. These are all gifts from God. All these different systems. At Cal, we've taken nature walks there to look at these giant Sequoia sempervirens, and we're blessed. The Sequoia tree only grows from the Oregon border to San Luis Obispo County. It's about 300 miles of that particular tree, and we're right in the middle of it. So let's see, I'm supposed to only talk for 20 minutes. I was telling my wife I do campfire talks and it's about an hour. So I was thinking, okay, I think I can fit most of this in, but I'll just see if I Oh, something I mentioned fish. So we just finished a new project at College Lake. So I'm working with the Powder Valley Water Management Agency, and what we've done at College Lake is we put a fish ladder in. We have fish, rainbow or trout or salmon that live in the ocean in salt water, and then when they want to lay their eggs and have babies, they go to freshwater. They go upstream. So at College Lake there was a barrier, and they couldn't get on up into Salsas Puentes Creek. So when the water project took over College Lake, they built a fish ladder, which is a series of ponds that the steelhead can jump from one pond to the next and go over the barrier that kept them out of the creek and go on up and spawn up in the upper reaches of Salsas Puentes Creek. So we now have an operating fish ladder there, and it's a lot of people like these salmon or steelhead, and it's a very popular fish. It's a very interesting life cycle to study. So other fish we have sardines out in the bay, and they used to have sardine factory at Cannery Row, and there's lots of different kinds. We have grunion. You know, when I was in Southern California, we had these grunion runs on the beach, and they're supposed to just go to Santa Barbara. But when I was working at New Brighton, we actually saw a grunion run at New Brighton. Now, you may not know how the grunion work, but it's a really interesting God-given creature. The females come out of the water on a full moon when the tides are changing just right, wiggle their way into the sand out of the water. The males come up and deposit milk, goes down their side and fertilizes the egg, and then the females hop back out of the sand and go back into the water. So it's kind of like a day on the beach party, but it's for fish, right? So we actually had a grunion run here. There are other grunion run in Southern California, but lots of interesting fish. I asked Antonio not to try and even link up the slides to my talk because I'm wandering all over and the slides are wandering all over. But the main point of all this is that these creatures give us a window into the creativity of the bay, and God had told the Israelites, if you want to be chosen people, you need to remember that I made the world, it's mine, and you need to keep my covenants and take care of my planet. So I think if we as Christians want to take care of God's creatures, it's part of our mission to be as sustainable as we can and live in harmony with the nature around us. And believe me, we got all kinds of nature all around us. It's hard to miss it. So I'm thankful that we have these various animals. I could continue to go on, but we're kind of out of time. So we'll just wrap it up with that. I have the list of those places I mentioned. I also have a typical local birds thing, which I'll take over to the center. These are most common birds observed, and I have some books on conifers in California, other resources to help you if you're interested in the natural systems that are all around us. But okay, I think the only thing I left off here was we have skunks. They're a lot of fun. So, all right. I didn't get a picture of one, but that concludes my sermon. Basically, I invite you to get to know nature and remember that it was God created all living things, and our relationship to God asks us to be in relationship with all living things. Thank you. our benediction. May the Lord bless you and keep you, lift up his countenance on you, and give you peace.